Hello everyone, my name is Harrison Hickman, and I want to welcome you to video one of what is going to be a 5-part video series where we're going to be talking about cold calling techniques that I've recently picked up in 3 books that I read. I'm going to take this moment to introduce you to these 3 books. The books that I'll be referencing are The 1-Minute Salesperson by Spencer Johnson, Smart Calling by Art Sobczak, and Cold Calling Techniques That Really Work by Steven Schiffman. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right, so all successful people are salespeople. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, so everyone can be described as a salesperson because everyone has something to sell. Leaders are trying to sell their ideas. Actors are trying to sell their acting ability. People looking for a date are trying to sell themselves. So everyone uses sales to some degree, and it's a very important part of life in general. Now, behind every sale is a person. So whenever people get caught up in all successful people are salespeople. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, everyone has something to sell, so they can be described as salespeople. For example, leaders are trying to sell certain ideas. Actors are trying to sell their acting ability. Bakers are trying to sell their cakes. People looking for dates are trying to sell themselves to potential partners. So sales is an integral part of everyone's life, whether they know it or not. But behind every sale is a person. And not just one person, but 2, correct? The buyer and the seller. Sometimes when people get caught up in the mechanical aspects of selling, just going through the motions, they seem to forget that there is an individual on the other side with their own needs, desires, and wants. It can be hard to remember that, but a lot of people seem to forget this. Now, sell on purpose. Selling on purpose means you go into it knowing what you want, and you try to get the other person to purchase your product. Once again, very simple idea, but a lot of people go into a phone call, for example, a cold call, and they seem to chicken out, right? They seem to chicken out of asking the other person to follow through with a purchase or asking for action to purchase a product or service, and you just need to know what you're there for. You don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste your time. And I want to introduce you also to something called the wonderful paradox. The wonderful paradox is that the more you try to help someone else get what they want, the more you'll find that you get what you want. You'll have more fun doing it, and you also have more success too. All right, necessity is sales. So I already described to you how everyone's a salesperson. So we already know some idea of how integral sales is to the human experience. But let me introduce to you another concept. This is called the 1/3 versus the 1/3 versus 1/3. So the first third is going to be a sale that you get no matter what you do. You can be a complete idiot, but there's going to be people who need to replace their inventory. Maybe something breaks and they're looking to replace that. Whatever it is, they're going to possibly be calling you to make that sale, and you can't screw it up. You're going to make that sale. The second third, however, is going to be completely out of reach. They're not going to pick up the phone. They're not going to want to talk to you. Whatever the case is, you're not going to make the sale. You can spend a lot of time wasted going after this second third, but it's just better spent not even addressing it after they make their case clear. However, this last third is in the realm of maybe. So this maybe, they have their products and services they're currently using, and they're not actively seeking another product or service to replace it. But that is our job as salesperson. It is in this last third that the profit margin of the company is met or not met. So this is the last third that we need to concentrate our efforts on. Now, I'm sure also most of you are aware of what is called the 80-20 rule. And this states that 20% of what we do comes up with 80% of the revenue. And this can also be seen as 20% of the salespeople come up with 80% of the revenue. So it is our job, it is our desire as salespeople to try to be in that elite class, that 20%, that class where we get the most revenue with the best techniques. Okay, but what is your number one enemy as a salesperson? Do you think that it's someone else's product? No. Do you think it's another salesperson who you're competing with, maybe in a friendly competition? No. What it is the status quo. So the status quo is your biggest enemy. People are using their product and service, and they're not actively looking to replace that. You need to be able to work against, their mindset. You need to be able to convince them that your product or service is superior. All right, so 10 traits of successful salespeople. So I've listed them out for you just to make it easier, but I'm also going to go into a little bit of depth discussing each one. So the first one, abnormal. You are not normal by definition if you are successful. If you were normal, you would just be another average Joe on the street. You would just be making average income. But if you're going to be successful, abnormal is what you need to do. You need to be going not with the crowd, but against it. All right, committed. You need to have goals that you're willing to pursue. Goals that whenever the going gets tough, you still keep in mind your goals and you commit to them. You don't give up. All right, so 10 traits of successful. All right. So 10 traits of successful salespeople. Now I've listed them out for you to make it easier on you if you want to jot these down real quick. But I'm also going to go into a little bit of depth of each one. So the first one, abnormal. By definition, if you are successful, you are not normal, right? If you were normal, you would be making average income. You wouldn't be successful. So if you're going to be successful, you need to be going against the crowd. Committed. You have goals and you're willing to work for them, right? We've all heard it in the motivational speeches, pursue your goals, but it's cliche, but this is what you need. All right. Motivated. You are self-motivated. You don't need any kind of third party to tell you the job you have to do, right? You know what you have to do and you get at it. So this kind of ties into being committed. Self-declared. Self-declared means that you basically are confident. You're confident in your ability and in your ability to sell and do what you have to do. Confident in your ability to meet your goals. Confident in your ability to be part of the 20%. All right. Sacrifice. Every decision you make in life is going to be a trade-off. And sometimes when it comes time to getting closer to your goals, you're going to have to make some trade-offs in order to do something you don't want to do right now. But in the long run, it'll pay off because you'll be able to meet your goal, which is something that you do want to do. So you need to be able to think long-term and brush aside short-term. All right, so number 5, delegation. So like I described earlier with the 80-20 rule, 20% of what you do comes up with 80% of your revenue. So it is your job, if you're going to be successful, that is, you need to be willing to focus on that 20% and delegate other responsibilities that perhaps fall in that 80% category to other people. Now, there's other people and resources that are willing to help you through it, but it really comes down to you're willing to let go of every single process and perhaps let someone take care of that. So now you have more time to focus on that 20% so you can be a part of that 80% revenue. Okay, optimism. This one goes without saying, right? So as Churchill once said, I don't see a point of being anything else other than an optimist. The glass is half full, you can make that sale. And as salespeople, you need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. If you're part of the problem, what are you even around for? You're calling to be someone's, solution. You're calling to figure out someone's problem so you can get around that, so you can make that sale. Okay, enthusiasm. If you're enthusiastic, every single day you're willing to go in like it's your first day. You know, think of little kids, right? So little kids, they run everywhere. Everywhere they're excited to go. And, well, they always have that pep in their step, right? So being enthusiastic means that you treat every day like it's your first. And you always have that little bit of excitement, adrenaline pumping through you as you make your calls. That's what being enthusiastic is all about. Okay, living off peak. So let me give you an example or some examples of living on peak. When you live on peak, you're waiting in rush hour traffic. You're stuck there for 45 minutes. You go to a restaurant. You have a 30-minute wait time. So these are some examples of living on peak. But if you're going to live off peak, you come before or after the rush time. You don't come during. So if everyone makes their sales calls at 10 a.m., you do it at 8 a.m. You already made your sales calls. So by the time they've already bought into your product, they're all set for the day. And now whenever the wave of everyone else comes, you've already done your business. Okay, so the last goal. So the last trait, consistency and being persistent. If you're not willing to put in the time day after day to put all these traits in action, you know, there's no point to any of the other traits. This is probably one of the most important ones because any change that you do needs to be there. You need to still be applying it, 3 months from now. It's said that it takes about 21 days to make a new routine. So at least for 21 days, you need to be doing it. And then after that, it'll come natural. All right. So I want to thank you for sticking till the end, the video 1. And in the next video, we're going to talk about pre-calling and researching information.